summer.
The CDC's updated guidelines dominating the news cycle at a time when the president is facing criticism on multiple fronts, from his response to rising violence in the Middle East to his handling of our southern border. The former Assistant Health Secretary under President Trump, Admiral Brett Joie, says this about the questionable timing.
Look at the whirlwind that happened. On Wednesday night, Dr. Walensky was absolutely intransient in her position. Yesterday morning, Dr. Fauci said, yeah, you still need to wear masks indoors and even outdoors if you're in a crowd, and by the afternoon it was all over. These decisions are not pure science, and we shouldn't look at that way. It's not just about infection control. It's about opening up America. It's about liberties. It's about how we run our country. And there was no scientific knowledge manifestation that happened yesterday. In fact, when you look at the CDC website and they say, what's the science behind it, it goes back to an April 2nd website.
He's exactly right, Dr. Nicole Saphier. I know Admiral Joie personally. I worked with him during my time in the Trump administration. He is someone who has been totally grounded in the science, as have you. So what do you make of the timing? Was this too little too late?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I was actually covering it live yesterday when those announcements were made. And when they were asked the question, you know, was there new science that came out, or is this just because of political pressure? And then the answer was, no, new data came out. And then she quoted a couple of studies. In my head, I'm like, I remember reading that like the first couple of days of April, and you know, Admiral Joie is completely correct. A lot of the data that they have been referring to has been out for a couple of months, but that's been pretty consistent. The CDC has been about 2 to 3 months behind the data when it comes to updating their recommendations. And you know, I can tell you it's a great foot forward, but I actually don't think they went even far enough because they're continuing to ignore the science when it comes to this. They've had tunnel vision about getting to 0 cases at the detriment of our children, of our businesses, our economy, and mental health. What they have to do at this point is get us open, and they are only addressing those who are vaccinated. President Biden, in my opinion, put out a dangerous tweet yesterday. He said, if you get vaccinated, take off your mask. If you don't get vaccinated, essentially, you have to keep wearing a mask until you do. That is just not true. He completely ignored those unvaccinated, the children, those who have contraindications to vaccination. And what about the millions who have recovered with natural immunity? What about the reliable data that shows natural immunity from infection provides just as much protection as the vaccine? They continue to ignore that, and that is extremely irresponsible.
That's exactly right. And Dr. Scott Atlas has been talking about natural immunity for some time, and they tried to run him out of Washington, D.C. Looks like he was exactly right. Raymond, coming to you, I found this SOT to be so interesting, the sound bite defending President Biden's wearing of a mask. It's from White House senior advisor for COVID response, Andy Slavitt. Here's what he said about why Biden was wearing a mask as recently as Wednesday.
I'm not sure that the president is the average person. I personally think there's a lot of protections around the president. Why does he need lots of Secret Service agents? Why do they, you know, belt and suspender everything with the president? Because he's a very important person. And I think you shouldn't take your mark just by what you see in the Oval Office. I think most people, if you're indoors around other people that are vaccinated, the CDC says it's okay. And I think you should listen to the CDC on that.
So the lead COVID advisor says to us Biden is so important that he needs to wear a mask Wednesday. Thursday, CDC guidelines are rescinded because none of us are important, and apparently now the science is on the side of not wearing the mask.
Kayleigh, you know, this is like when Biden came in, we were told science is back. But after watching this play out, I'm thinking of Whitney Houston. I'll steal the line. This science is whack. OK, none of this adds up. Their prognostications on the spread were wrong. At Christmas time, they said schools and restaurants and gyms were going to be super spreaders. None of that happened. And as Dr. Saphier said a moment ago, what about the natural immunity of our children? Yet today, you have the CDC leader, Dr. Walensky, on the Today Show, and she said this: it will be hard to let go of masks. people may want to continue wearing them. We should be able to do that in their own time. They'll let go of it. When did masks become pets? That's my problem in all of this. Immunity, as Dr. Saphier was saying, we don't hear anything about T-cell immunity from the CDC or the innate immunity of these children. The very idea that you say vaccinated people can go about their business and take masks off, but children in a playground outside have to be masked? That's what Dr. Fauci said yesterday. None of this adds up. It makes you feel that this information is being hoarded from us and only leaked out with political intent and with a political edge, basically to blunt these other horrific stories that are swamping this White House.
And I hate to tell the CDC director, it will not be hard for me to let go of my mask. I may have a bonfire down here in Florida. You're all welcome. We can
Me
wear our
neither.
masks together.
Mine was already gone, so it was easy. It was an easy parting. Decoupling.
Love it. Julian, coming to you. Look, I worked in the Trump administration on Operation Warp Speed, and I remember being in the Oval Office with the president and watching him put immense pressure on the officials around him, the science officials, saying, look, we've got to get this vaccine out, bust through whatever you have to bust through, do it safely, but we've got to not let regulations stand in our way. And not only that, but he planned for producing this vaccine in advance. It was remarkable, but yet the Biden administration gives very little credit to the fact that we're at this point without masks, vaccinated country. We don't often see them give credit to the prior administration.
We don't, and in large part, I think it's part of the natural transition from a Republican to a Democratic administration. But we have also seen the White House kind of go out of their way sometimes, including what the vice president said during the first week of the administration, which was that we had essentially no vaccine rollout plan when we came to office, which the entire nation knows was not exactly the truth. If you guys will just bear with me for a second, I want to ask Dr. Saphier a question. I don't know if this is like a clear-cut answer, Dr. Saphier, but I'm bringing it up because it seems like nobody's talking about it, but a lot of people have been tweeting me about it lately. They're saying there are a whole lot of Americans who, for them, for pre-existing medical reasons, a vaccine is not an option at all, or it's not an optimal option. Can you talk to us about, before we start shaming everybody now who doesn't have a vaccine, talk to us about some of the medical conditions out there that will prevent reasonable-minded Americans, not just because they're being anti-vaxxers, but because their doctors and physicians are recommending they don't get the vaccine. Talk to us about some of those conditions. I don't really know anything about it.
Well, so it's very important to differentiate between, the traditional anti-vaxxers who find skepticism with anything that's related to vaccines and the vaccine hesitant. And the vaccine hesitant, I understand why they hesitate. And there are some medical conditions where it's not necessarily contraindicated to get the vaccine, but the truth is we don't have a lot of data on it, specifically those who have immunocompromised systems, as well as some autoimmune diseases. Of course, those who have severe allergies, there can be a contraindication there. In the very beginning, the American College of Rheumatology came out saying, they did recommend people with autoimmune disease get the vaccine. They were starting to see some upticks in some of the flares after those with autoimmune disease getting the vaccine. But here's the thing, and here's the conversation that people need to have with their doctors. We have treatments for autoimmune flares. We have treatments for a lot of things. We still don't actually have a silver bullet in terms of treating severe COVID-19. So this is a big conversation. Risk and benefit with your physician. I do not think that the president should be going out there and saying you will have to wear a mask until you get a vaccine. I think that is dangerous, and I think that is irresponsible, and I think this is a choice that needs to come between the patient and their physician, and I think the president and the CDC need to stay out of it.
So it's almost like the president is saying, those who with pre-existing medical conditions who might not want to get the vaccine are going to have to bear the special burden that healthy people won't have to. Is that right?
Well, it's a double-edged sword, because those with chronic medical conditions are at a higher risk for COVID-19. Those are the ones that we are seeing hospitalized. But again, there have been some concerns with the vaccines with people with certain conditions. I will say the data to date does not show exacerbation of these conditions, and they really are proving to be safe in just about everyone. But again, it's okay to be hesitant as long as you have a conversation and educate yourself. And if your physician recommends against it, I don't think it is fair for the president or the CDC to say you have to continue wearing a mask. It is their choice if they want to wear a mask. They know that they are at an increased risk.
Yeah, it's a really important point. Thank you for bringing that up, Julian. Emily, to you, I want to have you button up this segment for us, because you and I were talking this morning about kind of the legal morass that some of these guidelines create, and how one governor in particular, a very good one, has a solution to that.
That's exactly right. Governor DeSantis in Florida has now come out and said that he's going to grant clemency, essentially, and evaluate any pending criminal charges against any business owner and operator that is facing charges for remaining opening during the lockdown. That's fantastic. That's something I've been advocating for this whole time. But I want to point out as well the deeper underlayer, and that's of the regulation and the licensure. And that's been yielded as a weapon this entire time throughout all states. There's so many cases that are still simmering. Let's take Sunday River Brewing Co. up in Maine. They were the most inspected restaurant in all of Maine. They had their liquor license taken away multiple times, their operating and health licenses taken away. An administrative hearing officer said they were, quote, an imminent threat to public health and safety. Their doors remain closed, and this is against the backdrop of, in Maine, 55 COVID deaths. You know how many families depend on the brewery for their livelihoods? 58. Now let's take as well Max Public House in Staten Island, designated an orange zone, just a block away from a less restrictive zone there in New York State. That owner was arrested, their licenses taken away as well. In December alone, he faced 25 criminal summonses by the state of New York. This as the homicide rate and shootings alone are up 97%. Doesn't the state have better things to do than prosecute and persecute business owners just trying to maintain their livelihood? And even in the state where I'm sitting in Washington State, the owner of Farm Boy restaurant faced fines of up to $2,000 a day, when the reason they were staying open is because they couldn't afford to close. So it's all of these licensure restrictions, these heavy fines, and again, the yielding of a weapon by the health departments that I hope all of our elected officials will expunge moving forward, because there's a lot more people suffering than just the good people under good Governor DeSantis's watch there in Florida.
Well said. Liberty matters. That's incredible, Emily. Thanks for bringing that to light.